Today we're looking at a bunch of chaos erupted in Rochester, New York. A BLM march turned into chaos shortly after it began, it looks like. The march was over a person whose name was Daniel Prude. Daniel Prude was... it's still under investigation, but essentially the narrative right now is that police murdered Daniel Prude in Rochester, New York. I watched the video. Basically, Daniel Prude was running around naked, high on PCP in Rochester, New York, and what appeared to be, it was snowing out lightly. Either way, it seemed like it was very cold out back in March. He was restrained, handcuffed, face down, and then he sat up and basically said he was going to kill everybody inside of a house. He decided to start spitting. It was said he had coronavirus, and of course, with the left, they made such a huge stink about coronavirus that why wouldn't you take precautions? It's this terribly deadly thing that's killing all these Americans and shutting down our economy. So when someone says they have it and is spitting at you, naturally, they're going to take precaution based on all of the stuff we've been told. So they put a spit bag over his head and he started freaking out. They then held him down. That then turned into him, struggling. And then that turned into him going to the hospital. He died 7 days after that. And the medical examiner said that he had died from complications, asphyxiation. Basically, he suffocated, and it said it was due to complications of being restrained, also while being intoxicated on PCP. So I'm wondering how much of it has to do with the PCP as opposed to the officers. There was a part of the video where the officer looked like he had held the bag for a pretty long time around his face and held him into the ground. I felt like that was very unnecessary. Once the bag was on the head, I don't know why he needed to hold it in that regard. It probably could have suffocated. But him dying 7 days later is kind of the question I have. So that's what we know so far. At least that's what I know. So from seeing that, it doesn't look like he was murdered by police, but it does look like it's a situation that, again, could have been avoided had he had not been on PCP running around naked in the street during a freezing cold night and then threatening to kill people and spitting on officers while saying he had coronavirus. So should the officers have put a bag on his head? I feel like that's part of procedure, but then should they have held the bag after he started squirming around? That's the part where I question. So we'll see what happens. I guess 7 officers involved were let go or something. We'll get into that anyway. So here's the march. This is the start of the march, basically, that occurred in Rochester. That's a lot of people. It's a lot of people marching. Keep in mind, this is from the other day, although now we're in September. The Daniel Prude situation occurred back in March of this year. So this was some half a year ago. This is later what occurred. So the march started like that. People walking. Okay, cool. People are allowed to protest and march, and that's a First Amendment thing. I have no issue with that. But then you see this occur, and this is kind of where things I get to like, what's going on here? Already heard a window break. People are outside eating, and they're getting approached now. Basically being forced out. There you go. She thinks she's high and mighty. They're breaking the tables. She's telling him to calm down. I mean, what do you expect when, hundreds of people are disrupting you and attacking a business? My question here is, who's the business owner? Is the business owner a relative of the police officer? One of the police officers? Were they a police officer? No idea. Probably no relation whatsoever. Just, an innocent restaurant that they wanted to destroy because why not? They have free reign in the streets. And it's just interesting that Governor Cuomo told Trump the other day that he would need an army to come to New York to protect him, this threat. But then you see this and you start to wonder, well, it seems like things are out of control. Thanks, Governor Cuomo. Oh, now he's saying don't throw things, but I already heard a bunch of things breaking. Maybe earlier it wasn't a window broken, it was just more glasses. So as you see, more peaceful protesters peacefully overthrowing a place of business and peacefully kicking people out and peacefully breaking glasses and tables. Peacefully screaming in people's faces. There we go. That's civilized. Little Antifa girl with her wooden shield breaking glasses. They're just peacefully destroying the place. You know, nothing to see here. The news will just communicate that they're peacefully, you know, destroying a business. Again, my question is, what does this business have to do with what occurred in March? Party over. People trying to eat dinner at a restaurant, and they yell party over because a man high on PCP, naked, in the snow died 7 days after being detained. I mean, just it's mind-boggling, really. So here's something I saw on Twitter. 7 police officers involved in the death of Daniel Prude have been suspended. The mayor of Rochester, New York, revealed on Thursday that the officers involved in Prude's death have been suspended. Police body camera footage released on Wednesday showed Rochester officers handcuffing Daniel Prude, placing a hood over his head, and pressing his face into the pavement until he was silent. That's the part I had in question when I saw the video. The placing the hood over his head, I think made sense. It didn't look like he was able to suffocate. It was a very open bag. But then when the officer, like, he kind of wrapped it a little bit and pressed his hands down into his head and kept him on the ground for a couple minutes, that's the part that even I'm kind of like, why would you do that? In the video, medics performed CPR on Prude before he was loaded into an ambulance. Prude died 7 days later on March 30th with an autopsy report from the Monroe County Medical Examiner's Office saying his cause of death included complications of asphyxiation in the setting of physical restraint. But it also said, I mean, it wasn't just from the physical restraint. It also had something to do with complications with being on PCP. So it was a combination of those things. However, I mean, here's a statistic that I thought was interesting. So you look at the number of people killed by police in the United States from 2013 to 2019 by cause of death. So obviously police shootings, there's a video where it debunks the BLM movement. You can go see that, basically, where I go over the police shooting cases. But here's the police shooting cases. The rest are basically, I mean, they're so low it's hard to quantify, just because the amount of calls to law enforcement annually average around 240 million calls to law enforcement. And then out of that, there's over, 1.2 million violent crimes committed annually as well. So there's a lot of crime and a lot of calls to law enforcement. And then these are the numbers that result in fatalities. And basically, after shooting, it's mostly taser, and then occasionally get a vehicle, and then beaten and restrained is this blue one right here. So beaten and restrained is like practically zero. So if you think about it, this is probably, I mean, I don't even know how to quantify it. I mean, you would have George Floyd, and it seems Daniel Prude. That's 2 in a year out of 240 million calls out of, over. I mean, it's just, I don't know, but like there's a narrative again that's being pushed now that this is this terrible thing that's occurring all the time, every single day. And just statistically, it's just not true. Like there's no evidence of that when you look at this. So anyways, these police officers have been suspended. I feel like that's standard procedure, especially when there's like a public outrage or any sort of death of somebody in custody with law enforcement. So they're suspended, but I mean, looking at it, I don't know. I don't think anything's going to come of it. And I'm sure there'll be more riots as a result of that. It is sad, when you look at Daniel Prude's brother, he said basically he wanted to help his brother. He called police to help him. And it's sad. It's sad that he lost his life. And it's nothing to be excited about, or it's not about picking sides of who's, which political party should come out prevailing in this narrative. It's a sad loss of life. But at the end of the day, it's not something that I look at as, I mean, it's a thing that I feel like could have been preventable. I don't know why a guy high on PCP is running around naked out in the freezing cold and then spitting at police officers after telling them he wanted to kill everyone inside of a house and then saying he had coronavirus and spitting at them. I mean, and then with all the narrative that we have with coronavirus being this terrible, deadly thing that shuts down entire economies, what is law enforcement supposed to do when someone's spitting at them that's saying they have coronavirus? They're supposed to protect themselves too, right? So you have a spit bag. The thing in question is him holding it over his head after a while and keeping him down. So I saw this from CNN as well. Daniel Prude's brother said he was acting erratic, suicidal before his deadly interaction with police. That was interesting to read. So basically in here, CNN writes that in the hours leading up to Daniel Prude's fatal encounter with police in Rochester, New York, the 41-year-old was making suicidal statements and threw himself down a flight of stairs, his brother said. So it seems like he was acting crazy. He threw himself downstairs. He was acting suicidal. I don't think watching the video that was a man that wanted to die necessarily. I think he might have just been like out of reality just based on whatever he was high off of. But again, I don't know his personal life, and it is a tragic loss of life. It's just unfortunate, but I don't know if it was, I don't think it's murder. Like when you look at the video, I don't think it was like these law enforcement officers looking at this guy and saying, oh, this is a person we want to kill just because that's what we're all about. It just doesn't fit that narrative at all. So the last thing I wanted to look at here was basically, this is from the Washington Post. They write, at least 7 police officers suspended in Rochester, New York after release of video showing hood placed on black man who later died. So this is the video. He was basically laying down, face down, sat up, and then decided to spit and then say he was going to kill everyone in the house. I think he broke a window somewhere. And then they placed a bag on his head. And then he was fine until he started freaking out. And then I believe one of these officers ended up, after he was belly down again, decided to hold the bag even tighter around his head to keep him down before the ambulance showed up. So my question too is like, it just sucks that this guy was laying out in the street for a while in what's clearly a very cold night. That's unfortunate when he's butt naked. So I feel like that also is something that could have been handled better, but I don't know. They could have put him in the back of a squad car or something maybe while they waited. So yeah, this is an entire article that explains everything that I discussed, and then obviously you can find the video. But my question now is, this happened 6 months ago. The body cam footage was just released. The officers have been suspended, and then a protest started where they were trying to demand justice for Daniel Prude, which I guess, there should be a case and looked into and obviously getting to the bottom of it in an investigation. But then that turns into this chaos where people are just destroying a restaurant. It's like, what does the restaurant have to do with this? It just doesn't make sense. This, like, you go from like First Amendment protected activities of protesting, which is totally fine, to like rioting and destroying a business. Like, what is that? It just blows my mind that this is like acceptable. And then you look at these places, like nothing's being done. They're allowing it. These politicians, these Democrat leaders are just allowing this stuff to occur. And it's like, do you really care about these businesses? Do you really care about these citizens? No, you just want them to vote for you so you can keep your power. And you have no concern whatsoever about any of these people, business owners or the voters. Like, I find it hard to believe that you actually care about them, because I guarantee you that after, like, it's all for votes. I'm telling you, it's all for votes. It's just there's no other explanation for it, honestly. But anyways, that's all I have for you today on this subject. It's sad to see, really, that businesses are being destroyed over, it's sad. It's terrible. It's unfortunate. Hopefully things change and things get better and they don't get worse. But it is a political season for voting. So naturally, I think you're going to see the left try and pull this kind of crap all the time just to try and get their votes, because they don't care about the people. They care about, getting their votes, and they're going to do whatever they can to get those votes. And if that means letting people that are willing to vote for them run amok and wreak havoc over cities and innocent bystanders and business owners, then they're going to let it happen. Anyways, hope you guys are doing okay out there. And until next time, God bless.